It's hard to imagine a video about Grandma without at least some mention of food. Grandma would say that the Depression was much harder on her parents than the children. Having never known plenty, the sacrifice was smaller. Grandma, ever optimistically, would say that hunger diminishes with time and a tighter belt. Contrast this with the helplessness of a parent unable to consistently and adequately provide for their children. But hunger did have a profound effect on Grandma and unseen consequences over several generations. Grandma is a pusher, a food pusher. While I cannot recall anyone politely ever turning down food that they wanted, Grandma usually offered the same item several times. And usually after they repeatedly insisted that they were not hungry, she just starts to offer something else, just in case. Occasionally, I have thought of confessing hunger after the third or fourth offer, but I'm quite sure this would bring disdain from the other family members. At some level, Grandma equates love with serving others, and frequently, serving means food. Similarly, the cooks were known for being generous with others, but frugal with what they had. Grandma would shop at multiple grocery stores, clipping out coupons to minimize her expenses. And while the typical American wastes nearly half of their food, Grandma wasted almost nothing and recycled long before it was popular. And although this behavior diminishes with each generation, I remember, in my household, black bananas going into bread or milkshakes, and anything worse ending up in the meatloaf. Most of these traits had subsided by the next generation, but I still find myself irrationally feeling guilty for not eating my plate at the restaurant, or eating something that I don't like just to finish it. I am probably only a little bit out of mainstream when I refeed my baby the food that she just pushed out of her mouth onto her face. I cringe when my children use hunger and starving as hyperbole, meaning I only had one snack since the last meal. But maybe this is inevitable. It is hard to be grateful for things that you've always had. Or maybe it's just the collective Depression-era memories starting to fade.
Before I was married, we went hungry a lot. As a little tiny child, we ate very well because my mother baked and she was a very good cook. We were better off when we moved back into the city. When we lived out in that country house, that was the poorest of all. That was the time we were hungry. We went without food. But when we moved back into the city again, we had help. The welfare wasn't started yet, but they were starting up to help people. And they helped first with the coal, I remember, because when that first half a ton of coal came, we all had to go out with a bushel basket and dump it down the basement. We did a lot of work too. I mean, the sawing, the wood came before that. When I was even younger, we sawed wood for it. Going without food makes you really appreciate and not want to waste anything.
I lay some nights and think all the way back, things that I've gone through your vacation about 5 or 6 times, then I can't get to sleep. I think about the girls, and I think, I'm always worried about what to get people to eat because everybody doesn't eat the same. And I am a very unfussy eater, and I like to take my food and throw it all together. That's good. But everybody doesn't like that.
They have those plates for kids where everything's divided so that stuff doesn't mix. A lot of kids don't like that.
Well, I was like that when I was little, believe it or not. My first spanking that I got from my father, if the gravy touched the potatoes or anything, and I didn't like fried meat gravy, I just liked roasted gravy, and I didn't know what it was, I called it water and flour gravy. And if anything touched anything on the plate, I remember that I was little on Madison Street, and I pushed the plate over on the table. Not going to eat it, it touched each other. And my mother and father had been arguing, and I didn't know, I wasn't old enough to know anything about that. I know that there was words, but when I shouldn't have pushed the plate that night, because my mother said, "Frank, what are you going to do to her?" Because Daddy would never spank kids, the boys yet, not the girls. So he got the hairbrush and gave me one smack on the back end, and boy, did that sting. I went like a bullet out the front door. I'm running away. I was always going to run away. I ran out the front door to the back door, and they locked it and wouldn't let me in. Then I sat there and cried. Right as a child, I just pushed the plate. I'm not going to eat it because something touched something. Well, that can be aggravating. If my mother ever lived to see me now, she'd say, "Look at that food you're eating," and mix it up. The boys did that all the time.
They mixed it up?
They'd put a pile of potatoes in the middle of their plate and put a hole in it. And whatever vegetable we had, they put in there, and the meat they put in there, cut up, then the gravy over the top. And I remember them liking meatloaf so well. We very seldom had anything but meatloaf or macaroni and cheese. And they always mixed everything, and I think, "Ooh, how gross." But when I did it, I do it in the restaurant even. I mix my food. It just tastes better when it's mixed. I never was too crazy about vegetables. I love spinach. But the other vegetables I could take or leave. So to take the curse off them, I like the potatoes, and I like the meat, and I like the gravy, so I just mix the vegetables in, and it all tastes alike then. All but beets. The beets I eat plain because they're purple. You know, they make everything all red. I used to put lettuce and put a club of peanut butter in it and roll it up. The peanut butter and cucumber in it. Oh, it's just, and then Marilyn told me about lettuce with peanut butter in the lettuce, or celery.
Marla would eat peanut butter and banana.
Oh, I don't like that, and Bill likes that. He took it in his lunch every day.
Oh, yeah?
He took raisin bread with peanut butter and banana. And I never liked the taste of banana, but I ate it because it was good for you, and besides, if you were given it, that was what you had to eat. But I never did like bananas. They're my least fruit. I eat them once in a while because I don't want to waste them. I used to pick all tart stuff that was sour apples that weren't ripe. But I've gotten out of that a little bit. But that peanut butter, Marilyn just told me about that. 'Cause when you get celery, you know, you get this big thing of it, and it's so expensive. And you only need a couple of stalks. Well, I was cutting it up and freezing it and putting it in soup. So it wouldn't, because it's a lot of money to throw away. And she said, "Oh, you know what you can do with it? Put peanut butter." And I said, "Oh, that sounds good." So the next thing of celery I got, I used one stalk for something, for a salad, and I ate all the rest with peanut butter in it. Oh, it's delicious. Oh, but I'm not too fond of white bread, except in the white rolls. I like it. I was going to have the meatloaf in the roll because it tastes like a hamburger, you know. But my appetite's very good. I can switch to anything.
What did you think about the food in Europe when you went there?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't get enough of it. And at that time I was drinking coffee. And coffee was so expensive, and it did taste as good as ours either. But it was all right. I'm very versatile with my food. And like I said, I just mixed it up and it tastes good, like Chinese mix.
Have you had Indian food
Oh,
before?
I love Indian.
Oh, really?
But not the hot.
Yeah.
We've gone to the Indian restaurant quite a bit. And they said they cook in Indian pots. It's advertised on their restaurant. And Nancy Jeffers went with me, and somebody else was with me too, but she got a bowl in her, whatever she had. Nancy is such a good egg. But she said to the waiter, is this a bowl that you'll be able to use as a part of the pressure cooker? And, he said, oh, you get your meal free. She said, no, you don't have to give me my meal free, but I thought you needed the bowl. But, I'm not.
Did she bite on it?
Well, it came in the food. You can see a big nut when it's in it.
Yeah.
And I have a sister-in-law that's married to that Kenny, and her mother, I'm embarrassed with them. They'll say, we've gone to the nicest restaurant, and she'll say, that wasn't cooked right, or I don't think it tasted just right, so the chicken's free. I said, that's cheating. Now Nancy's like that too, see? She didn't want the meal free because there was a bowl in it. But what I said was, hey, this is supposed to be cooked in these Indian pots that are advertised.
Yeah.
And here we get a bowl from a pressure cooker. Oh, well. Now here's where I was feeding her. See how she'd push it out of her mouth? She would just eat so much and she'd go and shove it out. And all the rest would gallop it down. When they ate, they galloped it. And, they're ready for more. I took care of a lot of sick people. Most of them don't want to eat. I said, I don't know how they can't want to eat. And I didn't eat for 5 days there. I didn't know it, but they said I wouldn't eat anything they brought me. I said, not me. If they bring me a plate of food, I eat it. Well, they said you didn't, you just wouldn't eat it.